Hey everyone, my name is Kendrick Diaz, and this is Verse by Verse, a short podcast all about exploring the insights and lessons of the inspired Word of God. Today we're looking at a verse in the book of Hebrews. Now this book mostly deals with the differences between the Old Covenant and the New Covenant. Now you might remember the Old Covenant. This was the agreement, the contract that God made with the children of Israel after he freed them from slavery. He organized them into a nation, he gave them his laws, and what happened? They broke the covenant. They broke the contract. Well, at any rate, that arrangement has been replaced by the new covenant. Now, the author of Hebrews is pointing out the difference between the two, and this is what he says. Quoting from an ancient prophecy, "This is the covenant that I will make with them after those days, says the Eternal. I will put my laws into their hearts, and in their minds I will write them." Now, the first point I should mention is clearly law-keeping is still required under the terms of the new covenant. That's not to say there isn't a difference. No, there is, but it has nothing to do with which of the 10 commandments are relevant and which are not. No, the change has everything to do with where the law is. Not what the law says or what it requires, but where the law is. See, when God made the covenant with the children of Israel, he gave them his commandments on tablets. Now, that was significant. God knew what he was doing. It summarized, or I should say it symbolized, how the Israelites as a whole viewed God's laws. They looked at his commandments as external obligations. They had no deep personal connection with them. God's laws were like a rigid checklist they had to follow, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. Now, the problem with that kind of obedience is that it's shallow. It's unsustainable. You eventually try and find shortcuts, or you only obey when people are looking. In other words, the problem is that obedience doesn't come from the heart. Now, all of us as human beings have that heart problem. We all naturally view God's law like that to one degree or another. But under the new covenant, God promises something he never offered the children of Israel: a change from the inside out. Again, God says, "I will put my laws into their hearts, and in their minds I will write them." Now let's use an analogy. Imagine you have a treasure chest, and that treasure chest represents everything you love, everything you cherish, everything you value, your desires, your aspirations, and so on. Well, under the new covenant, it's as though God places his words, his laws, his commandments into your treasure chest. Now, if that were to happen, you wouldn't view his commandments the same way, would you? You wouldn't see them as burdensome or exhaustive or too hard or too restrictive. No, they would become internalized. They would become a part of who you are. Now you would obey God because you want to. So to facilitate this change in heart, God goes directly to the source, to your core, through the power of his Spirit. Now, I don't mean to suggest that this complete transformation is instantaneous. No, it doesn't happen all at once. It's a process called conversion, and it takes time. I'll close with the statement the Apostle Paul made in the book of Philippians. He was writing to Christians, and they began to experience that change of heart. But Paul reminded them where that all came from. And he wrote in the 2nd chapter in the 13th verse, "For God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases him." How? Again, by writing his laws into their hearts and into their minds.
Verse by Verse is a companion podcast to the Daily Bible Verse blog, which you can find on the Life, Hope, and Truth Learning Center. Check out the show notes for more.